Good morning, welcome to Blain's Morning Porridge. It's October the 20th, 2025. Mutant credit cockroaches. Whatever next. As always, let's start with a quote. Smart men go broke three ways: ladies, liquor, and leverage. Markets are feeling increasingly nervous. It feels like someone has cranked up the party music all the way up to 11, and the euphoria is still pouring. Yet concerns about banking and loan exposures are rising around the financial markets. If there is a wobble, then it's likely to be leverage on leverage that sees a whole bunch of private credit lenders suddenly finding themselves in trouble. Now, despite all the market euphoria and the rising leverage and the opaque credit risks that we see and that could trigger the next financial crisis, markets seem to be taking it all in its strides. Well, at least that was the picture until a few days ago, when suddenly we started to see the tone of the market start to change. Anxiety is growing amid increasing uncertainty, and these range from trade tensions to banking instability. Now, the optimism remains high. It is possible that a sudden change in data or news could again boost markets. But we are seeing that gold holdings by the central banks now exceed the amount that they're holding in US Treasuries. And that's not because fiat money is collapsing, but it's as a hedge against global instability. The real systemic risk in the system lies not in traditional banks, but in the $3 trillion plus private credit markets, that's private equity and private credit, where lending occurs outside of regulatory oversight and generally is pretty non-transparent. And these non-bank lenders, which includes many private equity, private credit and investment funds, use leverage on leverage, and that makes them very vulnerable to the same kinds of liquidity shocks that we saw hitting the banks during the 2008 crisis. Losses in these opaque funds remain hidden until investors suddenly demand their money back through redemptions, by which time values may be even more eroded. If highly leveraged private credit or alternative funds start failing, then it's very possible that we'll have a contagion, a triggering confidence-driven credit crunch impacting all financial assets. Meanwhile, it's retail investors who are increasingly getting drawn into riskier and riskier products which the big investors want to offload. That includes things like alternative Tier 1 bank capital bonds, private credit issues, CLOs and ETFs based on alternative private assets. What we always see in markets is the big investors trying to offload risk when it gets to the late stages of a rally, and they always do the same thing. They look for the greater fools who will buy the risk from them, and that often ends up being retail investors. My conclusion is that the financial system is again overloaded with complex, illiquid and over-levered assets, and when confidence breaks, the fallout will spread from private markets to the broader economy. My advice to everyone is buyer beware, or as the Romans used to say, caveat emptor. Well, that's a very quick summation of today's morning porridge. If you want to receive the full morning porridge, you can get it on www.morningporridge.com. If you subscribe, you get the early morning email every morning, and then these vlogs and a later podcast come out through the day. Thanks very much, and I'll be back with something else tomorrow.